This time around for the spring 2024 Anicord Contracts, I'll be reviewing Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and Heavenly Delusion, recommended by my awesome contractor, 2Rubs. Before I begin, I just want to say 100% of you aren't subscribed, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Sorry, I still gotta do a little trolling, it's just more fun that way. But all jokes aside, my last review was so fun to do, and I'm so glad it got some of what I believe some well-deserved recognition. Especially coming from humble beginnings, I'm glad that that review was the one to be recognized and not my others. And then going through an unexpected copyright strike that could totally take down my channel, I'm exaggerating, but it actually happened, to then be nominated for the most valuable review, which I was not expecting, but is very, very much appreciated, and an honor, definitely took away most of the pain from the situation. Congratulations to everyone else included in the nominations, and of course to the winners. Very well deserved, each and every one of you guys. Shout out to everyone on the staff of the Anicord server who keeps this awesome event going. You guys put a crazy amount of time and effort in. It's truly amazing what you guys have built. Of course, before I start, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen either of these anime, or one but not the other, and want to avoid spoilers, there will be chapters in the description. On to the actual video. I was pretty nervous about starting this anime, mostly because I started late, because I'm lazy as f***, but also because, like I said, it's a huge series, so it felt a little overwhelming. And, well, I wasn't wrong. Like, what even is this? And before I get some nerdy, oh, you could've just looked it up. No, that's way too much effort, and from the words of a very beloved anime character of mine, Hotaro Oriki from Hyoka,
if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And if I have to, I'll do it as quickly as possible. That's the one!
I mean, you just can't get better than that. Great anime, by the way. The first opening was absolutely fire. The opening animation was great and fit very well. I mean, seriously, I was bopping to it. Very solid. The ending was nice and had good animation, a lot of foreshadowing and hints. I really love openings and endings for really most anime, except for you big piece of shit. Most openings and endings have some sort of hinting towards a certain character or arc, so I always make sure to watch them. It's a crime to skip them, so don't do it. Hideyuki Fukusawa did awesome on the soundtrack. His music just elevates the fight scenes. Although I will say from time to time it does sound a bit slice of lifey, but I'm not really complaining. It just takes away from some of the atmosphere they're trying to create. This anime scenery and lighting is clean and sleek, very modern and just looks nice. I will say as far as scenery and setting, most of the places they fight in the season tend to look similar, or just places that have already been established. They just don't move all that much. As far as development, I don't think it's the best I've ever seen, but it's definitely nowhere near the worst. But it is the anime's biggest flaw. They really focus on the main cast, which I don't have a problem with. It's good to get connected and established with them, and it helps for more emotional or tense scenes, but when you have no tense or suspenseful scenes, it seems more of a waste to only focus on the main cast when there are other influential characters in the series, and no focus on side characters or antagonists greatly affects your storytelling. I like Shiro. He's morally upstanding and an enjoyable character to watch, but he has sort of the shonen main character, I want to save everyone and live happily ever after personality, and sometimes it gets repetitive. Tosaka is pretty fun. She's a tsundere, but she's a smart and strong character, and she knows it. Shiro and Tosaka's dynamic is complicated and kinda confusing, but it's mostly because Tosaka is a softie and can't make up her mind. I just can't get over her name though. Like, why has no one ever pointed out it literally sounds like toe sucker? I want him told! Give him told, boy! It's a little absurd, but sometimes it's hard to take some scenes seriously when you hear it. Emiya is my favorite character, because he's such a Chad, and while he does have different ideals and morals from Shiro, and he's kind of a you can easily see their similarities. Also, every fight he's in is awesome. His fighting style is sick. Saber is cool, and her fights are pretty awesome, but if I could describe her in this season, she's like a talking Stan from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Obviously, there are different rules to the way servants work and what they do, and I'm not saying she's boring, but she doesn't have much of a role as far as progression in the story. In my opinion, it was pretty obvious as to who most of the masters or mages were, and if they were trying to build any sort of mystery or suspense, I didn't feel it. As far as the fights, they're pretty cool and unique, but I was disappointed to say the least. Most of the fights didn't seem to have much at stake, and most ended in a draw, which doesn't really further the plot. It just sort of stops dead in its tracks. This is part of the reason there are no tense or on the edge of your seat scenes. The only fight that has any sort of stakes is in the season finale with Castor, which sets up the next season. I just would have liked to see more fights that had a little more on the line, and even then there wasn't much payoff to it. Where I started to hit a wall with the series was understanding the concepts. What I mean by this is the concept of magic or magecraft in this universe. The way that I can most easily explain what I'm trying to convey is, take Jujutsu Kaisen for example. When you see characters use their cursed energy, techniques, amplification, or domain expansion, just to name a few, sometimes they aren't all that well explained, and sometimes it's very hard to track a fight when even while it was explained, may have different rules to it that weren't necessarily disclosed. It's not to say you can't track a fight. They're still enjoyable, but trying to understand what happened because of what a character did can be kind of a struggle. Also, keep in mind not everyone's curse technique or energy output is the same, so there are different rules to even some of the same concepts. I'm all for having an anime that challenges me to learn and pay attention, but it's hard when most things aren't explained or should be explained more in detail. Most of the way you learn is from fights, and sometimes the fight isn't even the main point of a scene. This is just a small problem I have with the anime. It's not like it makes it unenjoyable or unwatchable, it just makes it hard to track sometimes, and I'd rather not look up how some of their techniques and fighting styles work because I'd rather not have the possibility of getting spoiled. It's not to say that some of those questions won't be acknowledged later on, it just sucks when I feel it's more important in the present than learning about it later on and forgetting why I was asking in the first place. Little nitpicks aside, I think this was a solid season. But I will say I think the animation and fight scenes sorta carried it for me. Like I said, a little more fleshing out the story could have given this an even better rating. My rating in the first season of Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works comes out to an 8.25 out of 10. I was hyped to see this OP. Aimer is always amazing. The animation and the song are a great way to start the season. The ending animation was pretty cool seeing Archer and Saber, even if it was just for a second. There is more development in this season, but there's a lot of rushed storytelling. What I vaguely mentioned earlier about development is prevalent in both seasons of the series, but more related to this season. The biggest flaw in this season is not letting some of the other side characters or antagonists shine. It's hard to get attached or feel for them when you don't see them all too often, and it's even harder to feel betrayed or surprised when you haven't seen the character all that much. They come off as more annoying than a threat, which makes them seem more like a nuisance than a villain. For example, seeing Irisvale von Einsburn and Berserker fight Gilgamesh felt so random. It felt like it was just thrown in, like, oh hey, here's some backstory on a character that's only in 2 episodes, and then boom, she dead. She's just such a blank character. I didn't feel anything for her or Berserker because they were sort of just thrown in. It's hard to talk about characters when there's nothing to talk about. And I don't quite understand the point of introducing Gilgamesh that late in the series either. Sure, he makes some appearances early on, but you have no clue who he is, why he's there, and what his plans are. And for me, it didn't create this sort of suspense, oh, spooky weird character that sits in the shadows, what's he gonna do? It was more like, introduce the guy already. Since we're talking about pretty characters, let's get some more out of the way. And by no means am I saying every character is a character. I mean more on the line of when you don't flesh out a character, which makes or breaks a character, and then proceed to rush the storytelling, it then heavily affects plot points and progression, and the fights too. Like Kuzuki, for example. Who the f*** are you, bro? Literally has no emotion, but somehow feels the need to help Castor? I just don't understand. Like, bro, sit down. Emiya put you down so easy. Oh, then there's this little brick vessel, but he has no screen time, so there's not much to talk about. And then this guy's here too. I just don't understand where the writers thought that revealing backstory and motives so late would be beneficial, and then to just kill him off. If anything, you're just rushing things and giving a half answer, instead of letting it simmer and fleshing it out and making it feel more like a betrayal. And that just comes with giving the character more screen time. Let the viewer enjoy or despise their presence. It just strengthens the emotions they'll feel later on, no matter what the character does. The only character that they started to somewhat work on was Lancer.
Look at this dude.
He becomes an ally and a decent character who is relatively enjoyable to watch. But then nope, boom, let's kill this guy for no reason. All to make Kotomine look more villainous for no point. There's no payoff. And unfortunately, poor writing translates over to the fights. Fight-wise, there's no grit, no backbone to any of them. Honestly, Shiro vs. Emiya was just not what I was looking for. First of all, when the f*** did Shiro get so strong that he could supposedly go toe-to-toe with Emiya? How does that make sense? I'm all for seeing a character grow and become stronger, but there was no development or focus on that development in this season whatsoever. So to just chalk it up to his spirit or ideals are stronger is just such a writing choice. It just makes it seem more of an a-hole than anything. And it's even worse when you sit there knowing somehow, some way Shiro will win. And that's not just between that fight. That's also in the finale against Gilgamesh. While he did get Tosaka's crest and gain more mana, being able to all of a sudden become a master at something he wasn't even remotely proficient in seems absurd. The best way to create suspense in fights is to create the unknown. Am I sure that this character will win? Great animation can only take you so far, but writing is what makes or breaks a fight. Taking examples from the previous fights shown in the series where there was nothing on the line, unfortunately translated over to these fights as well. These were supposed to be the biggest fights in the series, and they're more of a letdown than anything. To do all that and then just throw Emiya aside and kill him immediately after seemed more like a disservice to his character than anything, and it was disappointing. But to see him come back like the Chad he is and save Tosaka and Shiro from the Holy Grail was actually pretty f***ing clutch. And what a exit by the Mad Lad. Bro is 100% my favorite character. And his speech in the final episode, "I was never wrong," gave me chills. Saber seemed to have so much more potential. It's a little unfortunate. She's held captive for like 6 episodes, and the animators got way too excited about that. It's just so unnecessary. The pose, the clothes, it's pretty weird. I just really thought she'd have some more progression or development. Sure, she has her final duel between Assassin and destroying the Holy Grail, but that's it. I was very excited and hyped for this series, because I've seen so many people say great things about the Fate series, and it's not to say that Unlimited Blade Works was terrible. If it was, I'd have given it an even lower score, but that's where I became a little let down. There were some good scenes, but they could have been elevated and brought to an even higher quality, making it not only good or great, but amazing. I am still interested in continuing and venturing more into the Fate series, but for me, Unlimited Blade Works had so much potential, and it just wasn't what it could have been. This brings me to my final score of Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works Season 2 to an 8 out of 10. Rallying both scores together brings the final score of the series, Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, to an 8.1 out of 10. Geez, where do I even begin? This anime was something I was very excited about, but seriously exceeded all of my expectations. It's one thing to be hyped and get let down, but it's another to be hyped and have those expectations exceeded. This opening was insane. The animation and that guitar solo going from calm to chaotic is beautiful. The ending was amazing too. Not many endings can match an opening in terms of being an absolute banger. I really like the animation style, and even while it is simplistic, it's so clean and stunning at times, while also being goofy and fun for humorous scenes. It makes the fights so fluid and fun to watch, and the fight choreography and style help visualize and enjoy the fights. There's sometimes when you're watching a really cool fight scene in an anime, but it's almost too fast-paced that it's difficult to understand what's going on or really enjoy and appreciate the work that these animators do. While there were not many fights, I thought they were still really cool. Within a mere minute of the first episode, I could tell the soundtrack was composed by Kensuke Ushio. And honestly, I was so hyped. From composing A Silent Voice, Chainsaw Man, and Devilman Crybaby, I was glad he had the honor to compose for this anime. The ability to go from soft and calming to mellow slice of life to an all-out chaotic fight scene, and be able to do all of those things seemingly in an instant, I could just tell he was perfect for this series. He does so well at capturing this eerie tone that's peaceful, but also keeps you on your toes. That kind of ability to weave in and out of certain tones and directions while still progressing the series is also what this anime does exceedingly well at. To be able to go from peaceful slice-of-life moments to mystery and science fiction to serious survival drama and throw in comedy along the way is what makes me really love this series. And I really love how much they travel throughout. Even for 13 episodes, they're moving almost every episode. It livens things with the setting and landscapes. To me, it makes things more interesting, and it also really helps that the anime moves back and forth between 2 different stories. While sometimes going back and forth between characters and stories can be overwhelming, if handled correctly, which it does, it creates this really interesting perspective. On one hand, you've got Haruki and Maru working as a pair trekking throughout apocalyptic Japan, whilst these kids and teenagers live in a so-called heaven. You'd think the kids living in heaven would be lively and happy, but it's kind of the opposite. They're living on a lie. So while they may think they're happy, they're just empty. They didn't get to choose their lives or make those choices. They've been stripped of those freedoms. Haruki and Maru, on the other hand, who you think would be miserable, make the best of their journey, and they're more happy than the kids who have supposedly everything. I can't tell you how unexpected my reaction was to Haruki and Kiriko's backstory. In Christ. It's literal emotional damage. I mean, seriously, I was not prepared for that, but it is a great plot twist. It's tragic what happens to Haruki in the finale. It was pretty uncomfortable and heartbreaking. But I think it made Maru and Haruki's bond with one another even stronger. Maru's speech in the finale brought a tear to my eye. There's just something so special about this duo. I really wish we'd gotten more of Maru's backstory. It's a little unclear, and I'd like to know more about his powers, but what makes me forgive the fact we may not know much about him is just how enjoyable he is on screen. And that's not only Maru or Haruki. Being able to only take an episode to create characters that you feel for is spectacular writing. The undertone of this anime is surprisingly dark, but it works so well for a reason. That's where this anime shines. While it has that slice of life and humorous vibe, it makes it all the more impactful when there's a serious or heartbreaking scene, because we don't see Haruki or Maru act that way. They're optimistic, and so is most of the vibe of the show. So when all of a sudden we see an unexpected death or story, it's that much more impactful because it's unexpected. What the anime banks on is that you feel comfortable, so that when there are moments like those, they're crushing. While there remain questions and mysteries, there's a reason they're being held a mystery. It just creates more of that tension and uneasiness, and that's what this anime does so well, unpredictability. If given a chance, I believe if the series plays it right, they can do something amazing. My biggest gripe with this anime is that it's not long enough. I truly hope it gets more seasons and more recognition. Seriously, this anime has something so special to it. It was really enjoyable to watch. I could seriously watch this multiple times and I'd still enjoy it. The atmosphere, relationships, the unpredictability, it's insanely well done. While this anime is nowhere near perfect, nor my favorite, it will hold a special place because of how enjoyable it was to watch. It's not to say I don't enjoy anime. I've enjoyed every anime I've watched, excuse me, with an exception, but there's a rare few where you watch it, and even with its flaws or problems, how it makes you feel is more important than how it makes you think. You put common sense and rationality aside, and you just enjoy it for what it is, bringing me to my final score of Heavenly Delusion to a 9 out of 10.